Unsure how to cleanly take off DTF namesets and sponsors from your football shirts? This is the video for you. By the end of this tutorial, you know exactly how we do it. Hello there and welcome back to We Fix Kits. Have you ever had a shirt that you love, but that DTF nameset or sponsor is damaged, or maybe just doesn't do it for you anymore? Maybe it's peeling like this, or bubbling like this, or maybe just a nameset that you regret and you want to change. Stick with us, because by the end of this video we're going to show you, explain to you not only what DTF is and how it differs from vinyl, but also exactly how we take it off and give you a nice clean canvas for you to put something new on and restore your football shirt. And trust me, if you ever thought about getting into football shirt restoration, We Fix Kits is where you start. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to not miss out on any of the fantastic content that we release weekly that will help you transform your football shirt collection. So what is DTF? Well, people use the term DTF and vinyl interchangeably when it comes to football shirts and printing name sets and printing badges, but actually the technology and the methods of creating them are really quite different. With vinyl, you start off with a white layer of printable vinyl, and the design that you have is printed on it, and then it's weeded and you're left with an artifact. With DTF, you start off with a clear layer of film, DTF meaning direct to film. And then in reverse order, the colours for the items are kind of sprayed onto the film. So for example, with this one, it would have been clear, you would have had the blue sprayed on, and then you would have had the white sprayed on, and then you would have had the black sprayed on. So what you're left with is exactly the shape of this flag printed onto see-through film. Now with vinyl, like I say, you would have white around it, where you then need to weed it and peel it off and be left with this kind of logo here, this Hertha Berlin flag. But with DTF, all that gets printed is the shape of the flag, so there's no concept of weeding. And that's kind of fundamentally where the differences are between vinyl and DTF. And what you get with DTF is, you'll see on the back of here, is this black glue. Because what happens once you've finished printing the design that you want, you then have to apply the powder glue, the adhesive, for it to then be baked and ready to be pressed onto the shirt. And the black glue here is what's commonly used on shirts like this. This is a sublimated material shirt, and the black glue does a really good job at stopping the colour of the shirt come through the badge. On some vinyls you will get the colour of the shirt coming through if you're not using a sub-block vinyl, but with DTF, because of the black glue on the back, that is what stops it coming through, which makes it a really good technology to use for football shirts. So if you're unsure on whether you're looking at a vinyl name set or a vinyl badge or a DTF one, this kind of black backing is the giveaway sign. Now, something that can happen with this kind of black glue is that maybe for DTF that's been damaged, or maybe lower quality DTF, the colours, the top layer of colours will come off, and you will be left with just a layer of black glue stuck to the shirt. So as I'm taking you through the process, I'll talk about that and explain how that needs to be catered for. But just be aware that that can happen, but don't worry, because it's all sortable. So this is where the magic is going to happen. I'm going to take you over to the other side and I'll show you step by step how to remove this Berlin DTF name set from the shirt. And make sure you stay to the end, because not only are you going to want to see what it looks like at the end, but you don't want to miss out on any of the finer details. So here we are at our trusty workbench. What we're going to need is the shirt that we're going to work on. So today we're going to take off Berlin. We need a light box and a Pyrex. We need some VLR, something to put the debris in, one of our scrapers. Drop us a comment below if you want a scraper and we can sort you out a set. Some kitchen towel, microfiber cloth, and a board for you to be able to prevent the VLR getting from one layer of the shirt onto the other. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to lay the shirt out over the light box so that we can see the letters, which we need to apply the VLR to. So here we go, let's just apply some VLR to that. You can use a cotton pad to apply it, or you can free pour. I have no problem with free pouring it, provided there's not anything around it that might get damaged, but it's up to you. Now, once it's on there, all you're gonna do is you're gonna start giving the material a bit of a tug. Now, bear in mind, the longer the VLR is touching the name set, the more of the adhesive it is eating through. If you apply the VLR and very quickly pull the vinyl off, that's less time that the VLR is going to be in contact with the adhesive. So the likelihood is you'll be left with a bit more residue, adhesive residue to take off. So I'm not in any mad rush to get this off. Obviously you want to do it before the VLR is completely evaporated, but you're just going to pull the material around and you can see it just flaking off nicely. Now, one of the mistakes that some people make is they start using a scraper too soon after applying the VLR. And not only does that mean that they're left with that large amount of adhesive, but it also means that if the VLR has kind of affected the colour on the name set, it can create like a liquid sort of paint that gets smeared into the shirt. So I'd say give it a good minute or so before you start trying to use a scraper. But look, I haven't even used a scraper, and off has come the DTF name set. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lay this onto the board, and with the scraper I'm just going to scrape away at any of the residue that is left on there. It's actually really come off quite cleanly, this one. There's nothing, if you have a look at that, there's not really anything coming off with the scraper. So I'm going to get my microfiber cloth and I'm just going to give it a rub. And what we have now is, you can see there's a little bit of an outline of the B. Now that could be residue, or it could just be discoloration of the material. We're going to give it another round in a second to see whether that kind of comes off. And one thing you can do, something I say to a lot of the people I have one-to-ones with, is have a feel of the material. So this is material that's had no name set and therefore is pure material. If you now have a feel of where this is, if it feels different, then the likelihood is that's because there's adhesive there. If it feels exactly the same, then it's probably just discoloration of the material. Now, this feels a little bit different to that, but not massively different. So it means that there's probably a bit of adhesive rather than it just being pure discoloration. So I'm going to apply a little bit more VLR again to the back. So let's pull it back over. This is where the light box really comes into its own, because now that's where there is still a name set. You can't really see that anymore here, but the light box makes it a bit clearer. So let's just put a little bit more VLR onto the back and let that sit there for a moment upside down, because like I say, the longer the VLR is in contact with the adhesive, the more it's eating away at it, because that's what you want the VLR to do, to effectively eat the adhesive rather than use the scraper as something, as a tool of force to scrape things off, because that's how you get damage on the football shirt. Now, something to bear in mind with VLR is that, well, one, it's quite noxious, so make sure you have plenty of ventilation when you're using it. Leave your windows open, things along those lines. But also it evaporates quite quickly, especially as we're getting out of winter and into the warmer months. It will evaporate probably within a minute or so. So just bear that in mind, because you want it to have not fully evaporated by the time you're trying to make use of it. So now I can feel that it's still a little bit wet, which is all good. And I am going to use the scraper just to see if any further adhesive comes off. And you can see there's a little bit coming off onto the scraper. And these scrapers are really good. I know I make them, so I would say that, but they are fantastic at being able to kind of get these last layers of adhesive off. So if you want one, drop us a comment down below and we can sort you out a set. Now, or if you want, we've got a video on how to make them, so you can watch that video and make one yourself. That's absolutely fine. Now, that is about as good as I think I'm going to get it in terms of there's no more adhesive coming off with the scraper. So now we're going to use the microfiber cloth to rub away any of those last bits. There we go. Now, if I feel that now versus the material, there's no difference. It just feels just the same. So that means that this mark that you can still see a very light one of is going to be more likely discoloration of the material. So no amount of solvent is going to get that off. No amount of scraping is going to get that off. All you're going to do is damage the shirt. So that's where you probably want to call it a day with carrying on trying to remove the adhesive. What you can see around the edges is these kind of smear marks that I talk about that VLR has a tendency to do. And any solvent will do, because it's taking the grime out of the shirt and it is kind of dissolving it. And then as the solvent kind of expands and evaporates, it leaves this kind of grimy ring at the extremity. But that's where spot solve is key. And we've got a video, it's going to be around about there, that explains how to get rid of these marks. So don't worry, we've got your back. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through and I am going to remove the rest of these letters, and then we'll be back. Feeling like you could use some extra help? Let me know in the comments down there, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button so that I can help you with all future videos. So here you can see that we're over halfway now, getting rid of Berlin. Couple of points to be aware of is you need to find the grain of the material when you're scraping. Now, for this particular material, it's a bit of a pain because it's not got a fantastic grain, but you just need to make sure you go in line with the grain of the material rather than across it. If you go across it when you're scraping, you're going to damage the fibres of the material. So pick the way that the material is going and go in that direction to avoid damaging the material. And the other thing to be aware of is when you're kind of pulling the shirt around, if you see here, if I pull it like that, there's not that much give. If I pull it that way, there's a lot more give. And if I do it diagonally, it's about in between. It's not unexpected. But my point here is that when you're pulling the shirt around, once you've applied the VLR to the back and you're pulling the shirt around, pull it in a way where there is the most give. Not so hard that you pull it out of shape, but so that there's enough movement in the material to make sure it dislodges the vinyl from the shirt. If you're just pulling this way, because there's not a lot of movement in the material, you may be there for a lot longer trying to remove the name set. But if you go diagonally or this way, you'll see that because there's more movement, it'll dislodge the vinyl from the shirt. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish off the iron the end. We'll be back. So we've finished taking off the Berlin name. Like I say, you can still see a very slight outline from the letters. But as I said, if you feel the material where there was no vinyl or DTF and feel it where the residue is, if it feels the same, then the likelihood is it's just discoloration and you're not going to get anything further off. Now, one of the things to bear in mind is that if it is just discoloration, or if it is even just a very fine amount of adhesive residue, when you put a new name set over the top, not only will the eye be drawn away from any residue and to the new name set, which will make it a lot less obvious. Process of applying the heat from the heat press to put the new name set on actually removes a fair bit of the visibility of the name set. So just bear in mind, when you're doing the removals, one, it's always best to put something new over the top rather than expect it to be plain and have no residue left. But two, don't always go looking for that perfect removal that leaves no residue at all. Sometimes it's kind of impossible to do without spending inordinate amount of time doing it. So just be kind of happy if you can get to the point where it feels the same as the rest of the material. Get your new name set, press it on. Now, before you press the new one on, what you need to do is make sure, I don't know if you can see these smear lines around the outside from the solvent. This is what I talked about earlier. You're going to need to get rid of those. So what you would do is you will use Spot Solve, and there's a video up there that explains how to do it all. So I'm not going to go into any detail here, but before you do that, you want to make sure you remove all of the vinyl or DTF that you're trying to remove before then addressing the smear marks. But there you go. This is now ready to get this taken off and get a new one put on. So there you have it. The shirt is finished. The Berlin name set, well, the name has kind of come off. As we talked about, the process is very similar to the vinyl removal process. The thing you've got to be aware of with DTF though is, like I say, it's that black powder glue that can remain, and therefore you've got to be a little bit careful with it. That is now ready to be, well, to have the 13 removed, but have the Spot Solve, get rid of the smear marks, and then go through a wash. I can't wait to see what you do with your removals. So let me know in the comments below how you've got on with your projects. And don't forget to click like and subscribe, or maybe even book a one-to-one session if you want that extra boost. Now, thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, you're going to love these two.